Hi, my name is Bill Koski. I am a professor of law at the Stanford Law School, and I also am the director of the Youth and Education Law Project, a clinical teaching operation at Stanford that represents disadvantaged kids in their communities in education-related matters. What sparked my interest in education? I would say there are probably two major influences. One is my family, and the second is the realization that educational opportunities aren't equally distributed. And with regard to my family, my mom is a teacher. In fact, I'm very proud of her. She's been a special ed teacher for 42 years now. I'm not even sure they called it special education back when she started teaching kids with disabilities. I had a grandfather who was a principal, a grandmother was a librarian. My father started teaching later in his career. My brother is both a teacher and now a principal, and my sister does youth development work. So education has always been one of those core fundamental things in my family. The other part is I realized pretty quickly when I went to college that educational resources and opportunities aren't very equally distributed. I also tutored at a place called Maxie Boys Training School, which is a euphemism for maximum security prison for juveniles in the state of Michigan. And here I was, 18, 19 years old, and I was tutoring young men who were 16, 17 years old, basically my age, but in very different situations, and they had one common denominator. They had really been shafted in terms of their education, and it was clear when I was working with them. And so I became very interested in this idea that, wow, there are inequities in education, and what can I do about that? I feel very fortunate that I get to live in two or maybe even three worlds. On the one hand, I feel incredibly fortunate to be able to live in a world of research and scholarship and think big thoughts and do empirical work and test out theories and write up those things that I find and do it in a very scientific and rigorous way. That's wonderful and that's great. But equally important to me is the fact that I also live in the world of actual advocacy, whether it's advocacy through litigation or administrative law routes, or advocacy directly with state legislatures or local school boards. And so I have an opportunity to meld the scholarship, the research, into my practice, and I've made it a mission to do that through the work that we do, whether it's, for instance, an issue that bubbles from the ground up. I noticed a number of years ago that many of my clients who had mental health issues were not being adequately served by the system that provides mental health services for children in California in schools. And so we did a policy research project that ultimately ended up in a policy brief, trying to answer the question, why is it that kids aren't getting served the way they should, and can we possibly design a better system for delivery of mental health services? We made some policy recommendations. A legislator in Sacramento picked up on those and actually turned it into policy. Again, I feel very fortunate that I get to live in both of these worlds and have those worlds influence each other.